Well, welcome back. You know, stress, of course, is an inevitable part of life for people of any age, even babies and young children. But there comes a time when stress becomes toxic and a risk to learning and development. And psychologist and Mom Enough podcast host, Dr. Marty Erickson, is here with 3 things that parents can do to raise kids with the resilience to navigate life's ups and downs. So many ups and downs. You think about parents dealing with stress. Kids also have stress, right?
That's right. And you know, our stress interacts, and when we're not managing our own stress well, then that really has an impact on our children. And the really important point is that this starts from day one. There's
Even when they're little.
Well, exactly. And just to give a little backstory, there's a huge body of research on risk and resilience, and a great deal of that research has been done right here at the University of Minnesota. That was the focus of my own research in the many decades that I was on the faculty and doing research at the U. So this is something that we've really learned a lot about, and the encouraging thing is parents really matter. So whatever the stress is, you know, living in a violent neighborhood or putting too much pressure on kids from every quarter. I mean, parents and teachers and society and whatever it is, getting over scheduled so that we just never have time to breathe. We or our kids. All of those things are stresses, and certainly family conflict has a lot of stress involved, both for the parents, obviously, but for the children as well, even when they're babies. So we just have to understand that and try to nurture this resilience that allows the kids to bounce back.
Because there's going to be risks, so there has to be resilience.
Yeah,
okay, so I've got a couple of the 3 tips that you mentioned, and this again is a 3-part series that's up on your podcast right now.
Yes,
so
with
that's
experts
really cool.
from St. David's Center for Child and Family Development. It's a beautiful series, and I would really encourage people to listen to all 3.
All 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so be the secure base for your child at every age.
Yes, and that starts with developing a secure attachment in infancy, and that means you have to be a good enough parent, a mom enough or a dad enough. And that means responding to kids when they're crying for comfort or paying attention to their cues, trying to understand what they need from you. We get hung up sometimes on the spoiling myth. You will not spoil a baby by responding to them and providing consistent nurturance and sensitive response to their cues. Babies tell you things long before they have words.
And then when they're teenagers, it's a little bit harder to navigate that because they're pushing you away quite a bit, but then if they're not, you have to really kind of soak that in, right?
Exactly. And you know, the thing is, you need to be there and ready to listen, not just talk, and be there to hear your child's feelings, try to understand what their experience is.
And that leads us to tip 2, see through the eyes of your child.
Yeah, you know, we get so hung up in looking at a child's behavior and thinking, oh boy, I have to impose a consequence or some discipline. But we need to start first by understanding what the child's experience is, see through their eyes, and that means listening, and saying, you know, I wonder if you're, you know, being so sassy with me because you're just feeling really stressed about what's going on at school. So just open the door for that and, you know, be empathic before you may still need to impose consequences if they've done something really significant. It isn't, you know, that you're going to be totally permissive, but you're hearing them and seeing through their eyes.
Consistency with all of that, I imagine, is the big thing.
Oh yeah, that's the challenge.
And number 3 is model healthy coping and learn with and from your child.
Yeah, and you know, as kids get a little older, but even in the preschool years, we need to kind of sit down with them and coach them and help them learn self-regulation. We've talked about that before. Take 3 belly breaths to calm yourself down. But we need to do those things ourselves. And what I've noticed, especially watching my daughter Erin, my Mom Enough co-host, and her kids who are now all teenagers, you know, she really sits with them and they do these mindfulness techniques. And she did that when the kids were really little, and they still do that as teenagers. And so you're learning together, and sometimes her kids are modeling for her how to do it, you know, or kind of reminding her, Mom, don't you need 3 belly breaths, you know? And that's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. Well, and of course, modeling is such a big part of, you know, parenting anyway. They're going to see it. So
yeah, and then learn from them, you know?
Right.
One of my grandsons always would come home from school and say, I need to get the wild out before I do my homework. And, you know, he had such self-awareness. And that was a good example for me, and it reminded me, boy, I need to get the wild out too. So go out for a run or a bike ride or, you know, turn cartwheels in the backyard, you know.
Well, thank you so much for this information.
Sure.
Again, we've just kind of nicked the top of the iceberg
Yep.
here, and there's a lot of information here. As we mentioned, there is a three-part series on the Mom Enough website, so you can go ahead and watch that. And that was you were able to get a lot of help from St. David's, you mentioned.
Yes, they're one of our supporting partners, and so their experts do shows with us every year, and we work out together a real important theme, and they do a three-part series, and this one this year is on risk and resilience. And
Perfect.
yeah, it's
We'll
a great,
give all the
great series.
information on KARE11.com. Thank you
Yep.
so much, Dr. Marty. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Belinda. Good to
Yes.
see you.